Well, hello there, political conservative. Today, I'm going to show you a native flower garden design that I made with you in mind. So before I show you the garden design, let me give you the specs on the garden. Here we are. So that you can see whether this garden works for your yard at all. And so we're pretty middle of the road here. Partial sun, full sun, those will work best. The soil should be loam, but if you're a little bit to the side of clay or a little bit to the side of sand, that's all right. And then the soil moisture should be medium, but if it's medium wet or medium dry, that'll be okay. So it's pretty middle of the road, right? Okay, so how do you make a garden plan for a political group? What I did is, well, I thought about it for a while, and then I remembered this old study that I had read many years ago, but its results, they really stuck with me. And what this group of researchers did is they took this decently sizable group of people, and they had those people identify whether they were liberals or conservatives, so self-identified. And then they put these people in an MRI, and it was a while ago, and I have been unable to find the study again, so I really apologize for how sketchy my memory is on this. I don't remember whether it was an MRI, an fMRI, an MRA. I don't remember that. I just remember it was showing what parts of the brain were becoming active when the researchers were showing them images or saying words to them that were, I don't quite remember. Terrible, isn't it? I think they had to do with things that were sort of different or the same-ish from the person that was in the MRI. And again, I really apologize for my hazy memory of it. And so what they found for political liberals, I will give you a link in the description to my liberal garden design. You can go over there if you want to know those results. But let's talk about you here. Conservatives, what they found is the part of the brain that got real active is the part of the brain related to protection. Protect, conserve, preserve. And so this sort of makes sense with how conservatives traditionally are. We traditionally consider conservatives to be go America, red, white, and blue all the way, baby. Protect our traditions, protect what is good, conserve the things that we know work that are good, and the way that we do things in America are good. We should be proud and protect these things. And what are we protecting them from? Well, the idea, especially when you look at smaller communities of people, like tribes, if you will, you're protecting from outside people, outside ideas, outside traditions, clothes, music, languages, anything you can think of that is different. And so you can see in a community or a culture or a society or a country that this idea of protection is a good one. Not every new idea is a good idea. Not every new person that comes to town is a good person. Not every new piece of clothing, new music, new food, new way of doing things, not all of them are good. And so it makes sense to have this kind of initial reaction of whoa, 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 whoa. Let us protect what is good here and not just let in everything, right? So this makes sense, and this is for a culture, and this is kind of a neat finding that they had. And so I based this native flower garden off of that idea, that this is what lights up in political conservative minds, right? Protection. And so here we have the garden design. So I'm going to walk through each of these different plants for you, and I haven't given any actual dimensions on it, because if you have a really small space, you'll probably only have one of each of these plants. If you have a very big space, you would scale it up. It depends what you have. And if you have a really small space, you see how I have at the bottom 1A, 1B, 1C, and then 2A, 2B, 2C. You can get rid of 3 of those, get rid of a whole row. And 3C and 3B at the top, you can get rid of a whole row if you don't have this space. Okay, so let's start down at the bottom. So at the bottom here are the shortest plants, and they get taller as you go back, because that makes sense. And as you can see, these 1A, 1B, 1C, and then the 2 plants have a red, white, and blue scheme here. And I know sometimes people think that's like overdone for conservatives, red, white, and blue, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's fitting, and I think it's good, because it's like, yes, that is what is being protected here. The red, white, and blue, the United States of America. So it makes sense to have a bit of a red, white, and blue theme going on. Do you know what I mean? And so starting at the bottom, that first plant there, 1A, so that is going to be red Trillium. And so red Trillium, pardon me, is a very singular plant. It's very lovely. And that will come up bloom somewhere in the region of April to June. So that'll be one of your first plants coming up and blooming. And I picked the red Trillium because, first of all, it's red, and it's very noticeably red. Noticeably, well, it's red. Anyways, and the other thing is, if you're unfamiliar with red Trillium, it doesn't attract traditional pollinators that we think of. We think of butterflies and bees. Red Trillium actually has a very foul smell when you get very close to it. The foul smell is a little bit of like a rotting smell. And the reason that the flower does that is because the pollinators for it are carrion flies and carrion beetles. So what does that mean? That means in the springtime, these flies and beetles are emerging, and they're hungry, and they're looking for a dead animal to get nutrition from. And so the red Trillium has the color. This red is the color a little bit of, say, like meat or rotting flesh. And the smell is also that of rotting flesh. And so it brings in these carrion flies and carrion beetles who think they're going to get some kind of meaty meal, and it's actually a flower. But so why would I pick that for you guys, right? You know what it is? It's that you're not scared of what people think. And so, okay, the smell of it, from far away, you can't smell it at all. You really got to get close. So it's not like you're going to have a stinky yard or anything. But like, when I think of political conservatives and I think of protecting our country and protecting our traditions, it's sort of I'm going to protect what is good, and I don't really care what you think about that. I mean, not saying that conservatives don't listen. They do. But do you know what I mean? It's sort of we need to protect what is good. So whether you like that or not, that's what needs to be done. And so I thought of red Trillium as sort of like, it smells a little bit, right? But like, the plant doesn't care. That is how it works, and that is how it works well. Sort of, conservatives looking at the United States, like, this is how we work, and this is how we work well. And, there it is. And so, that's kind of what I thought. As I go through, if I say anything you find offensive, you just leave me a comment. I don't mind hearing it. Let me know what you think. And also let me know if you think of any other plants that would be really good in this garden design. I also would like to hear that. Okay, so let's move over to 1B. So 1B is another Trillium. This one is white Trillium. And so this one will bloom somewhere in the neighborhood of May to June. So a little bit after red Trillium, but they should overlap. And I liked this because it's white, to go with our red, white, and blue. But also white is sort of a symbol of purity, right? And when I think of conservatives protecting our country and protecting what works, there's sort of a purity of thought there, like a purity of what we know is good is good. Like, maybe, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but like in our country, children go to school from kindergarten through 12th grade. That is sort of a staple of our country nowadays. And like, that is good. And there's sort of a purity of thought there that like, what I know is good is good. Education, K through 12 is good. And so I kind of that protecting, that purity of thought, of protecting what is good. That's what I thought for white and the white trillium. Now, unlike the red trillium, the white trillium does attract some pollinators you're more used to seeing, like bumblebees. Okay. And then for 1C over there on the right, I have Ohio spiderwort. So you don't need to live in Ohio. This is still a United States native plant, and it blooms from May to July. So again, this first row of plants will probably be your first ones up and blooming. And what I liked about the Ohio spiderwort is first, it leans a bit blue to get that red, white, and blue. My eyes often see it as more purple, but after dealing with native plants for a while, I'm wondering if I'm slightly blue-purple colorblind a little bit. Most people say Ohio spiderwort is a little bit blue, and I just see purple. So I don't know what to tell you, but I've put it there as our blue. And Ohio spiderwort is attractive to many bees, like lots of bees. It's a busy plant. So the red and white trillium usually are not super busy with pollinators, but that Ohio spiderwort will be. And what I kind of thought about that is like lots of bees in springtime are coming to this plant. Like we're a country based on immigrants, right? Like everybody, when you go back in everybody's ancestry, we're all immigrants in one way or another. And it's like, yes, we are all welcome here so long as we pull up our bootstraps and get to work. Do you know what I mean? And so when I see all of the pollinators and the bees around Ohio spiderwort, I think of that. Like the Ohio spiderwort is like, yes, you are all welcome here so long as you get busy and get to work and contribute positively to this community. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that is a conservative value, you know, the American dream. Like, yes, you can come here, you can work, and you can, you know, one day buy a home and raise a family and, you know, have a stake in our country. Do you know what I mean? And so I thought of that with all the pollinators that are busy around that Ohio spiderwort. Okay, so let us move back a row now to the twos. 2A, 2B, and 2C. So again, red, white, and blue, just in reverse order for visual interest. Sorry. So then starting at 2A. So 2A is blue sage. And so that will bloom from August to October, so a little bit later, right? And blue sage has this aromatic smell that deters predators. So it won't deter you. It's not a bad smell to us. But predators that might like to come along and chomp on it, it has a smell that things that would like to eat it do not like. So why would I put that here? Well, again, blue sage, it's a bit blue of a plant for our red, white, and blue. And I actually also see it as blue, so that's good. I'm not totally colorblind. But also this idea of this deterring smell to predators. It's like with that Ohio spiderwort, like, yes, we're all welcome here. Pull up your bootstraps, get to work. Unless you are bad, in which case we would like to deter you. And so this kind of also goes along with like, not every new idea is a good new idea. And so I kind of thought of that with this blue sage deterring smell. Like we're not accepting everything into our communities and our country. Not every new everything is meant is good for us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm like stumbling over my words here. Anyways, that's kind of what I thought about for the blue sage, right? Okay, so moving over to 2B, it's kind of a neat picture there. That's my best way of representing rattlesnake master. So this will bloom somewhere in the ballpark of July to September, and it's very unique. Right? Like this is a very unique looking plant. Many people, if they have rattlesnake master in their garden, they only have maybe one of them or maybe two because they're sort of a unique, focal point in a garden. But I here have a whole little spot for rattlesnake master. So why I chose it is the white, red, white, and blue. And also that unique look to it. It's really unique. And it made me think of America. We are really, really unique. So we're unique in our form of government, like the 3 different branches of government and that balance of power between the 3 different branches of government. So one branch doesn't get outsized in power. Like that's somewhat unique. That's a great idea that we had, But also what makes us unique is us. As I said, and as you know, we're a country of immigrants, whether it's immigrants right now or, a couple hundred years ago, not that many people were here originally, right? And what that means is that when you look at Americans, there are so many different looks to us, so many different like bone structure in our faces and colors of hair and eyes and skin and like body types. Like we're all over the place because we've got people from all over the world. That's really unique. If you've ever traveled to another country, when you go there, often there's a homogeneous way to how they look. I never really appreciated what different groups of people look like until you go to their country and you're like, oh, this is what a Hungarian looks like. I get it. Okay. Because so many people in these different countries look very similar, right? And so, and I just threw Hungary in there as an example. But that's really unique and that's cool. And so when I think of conservatives, I think like, yes, this unique thing about America is worth protecting. It's a really, really cool thing about us. Okay, so let's move over to 2C. So 2C is cardinal flower, and this should bloom from July to September. And so I picked it because in this row of 2s, it'll be blooming around the same time as the other ones. So you should get overlap there of blooms to get a nice red, white, and blue. I also picked it, of course, because it's red. And then the other reason is, and I really dug into this one with my brain, and I'm not sure if it makes sense or not. So you can let me know. The cardinal flower, like the original one that you'll plant, it will come back for a few years, but not actually for all that long. So every year in fall time and winter time, you'll leave the stalks up for the plant. Like a lot of people like to cut the stalks down in their gardens. Like don't do that. Keep them up. Our pollinators and insects use those stems, and that's good. We want them to. But also, that gives a lot of time for the seeds on these plants to disperse. And you want that to happen because you want to have your garden as like a continually ongoing garden that you don't ever look one year and you're like, there's nothing left. You want the offspring, the baby plants, to grow as well, right? And this is particularly true with cardinal flower because, again, that parent plant doesn't last that many years. And so if you let the seeds drop, all these little baby cardinal flowers come up, and after, a year or 2, they start to bloom. And your eyes and my eyes looking at this little spot in your garden, it'll look the same every year. You'll have this beautiful red plant. And so you and I will look at it and keep thinking, oh, this is the same plant. It just keeps coming back for 10 or 20 years. But it's not. It only goes a few years, and then it's the offspring of the original plant that you're seeing. And then it's the offspring of those that you're seeing. Because again, cardinal flower itself doesn't last all that long. And so this reminds me of like generations here. Is like part of being a conservative is protecting our traditions from generation to generation. Like we all get together for Thanksgiving, or, you've got fireworks on the 4th of July or something, right? Like these traditions, and like from generation to generation, you preserve them. And you protect them. And so from one generation to the next, you can't really see a difference. Just like with cardinal flower, you can't really see a difference over the years. It all just looks the same. And I guess I was thinking about that and like conserving our traditions. And you can't really see a difference from generation to generation with some traditions. Do you know what I mean? So let me know if that makes any sense at all. Okay, let's move to the 3s. So 3A is on each side of your garden. So 3A is prairie dropseed. So prairie dropseed is a grass, which people will often think of as a rather boring plant to have. It does flower, but it's not really a flower that we notice because it doesn't get pollinated by bees and butterflies. It's wind pollinated. So it doesn't need to make a beautiful flower to draw in anything. Just the wind pollinates it and then blows the seeds. And so it does bloom from August to September, not that we'll notice. But I chose this plant for a couple reasons. So it's a very lovely green. And when you think of green, we think of money, we think of the economy. And I guess when I think of protecting our country and I think of the economy, I think of like stability in our money system. And we do have that. You know, other countries base their currencies off of the American dollar. And that indicates stability in your country, in your money, in your economy, even though to us sometimes things seem crazy. Overall, it is stable enough that other countries base their currency values off of ours quite often. And so that's neat. That's something. And with that stability, prairie dropseed is the host plant to a lot of different butterflies and caterpillars, and that creates stability in a little ecosystem. And so a host plant, if you don't know, so you know that we like to see beautiful butterflies, right? But how do you make a butterfly? Well, the mama butterflies lay their eggs on leaves. So like prairie dropseed leaves, for example. And then those eggs hatch and a little caterpillar comes out. And those caterpillars will eat these leaves. And that's what a host plant is it's a plant with leaves that these caterpillars will enjoy eating. So that they can then make their little cocoon and become a butterfly themselves. So when you see holes or chewed up portions of your leaves in your native plant garden, you should be relieved and happy. Like, oh, good. Caterpillars and insects are in here eating up some of these leaves. That is good. That will help us get more beautiful butterflies and moths. You know, moths get a bad rap. There's a lot of really pretty moths. Anyways, and so prairie dropseed creates stability in an ecosystem as well. So 3B. So 3B is showy goldenrod. And this will bloom from August to October. And so goldenrod. I know. Well, I can't do that. I'm allergic to goldenrod. You're probably not. So goldenrod usually grows alongside ragweed. And it's ragweed that people are allergic to. It's not goldenrod. And another reason I have to say that is the data shows us that, but also goldenrod, you'll notice there's a lot of pollinators around goldenrod. That's because pollinators is what pollinates it. So the pollen grains are real sticky. They're real heavy and sticky, so they can stick to bumblebees and stick to butterflies and stuff. Because that's how it gets pollinated. Ragweed is a very light, not sticky pollen because it's wind pollinated. It gets in the wind. And that is what gets in our noses. So unless you're rubbing goldenrod on your face and getting sticky pollen up your nose, it's the wind pollinated pollen plants that are making you allergic. Do you know what I mean? Like the wind blows the pollen up your nose. That'll be ragweed in this case. Goldenrod has those nice big sticky pollen pieces that really can't, the wind does not blow them up our noses. So goldenrod. Okay, so when I think of goldenrod and I think of conservatives, the reason I chose it was for two reasons. The first reason is I'm thinking of like the golden color of it, right? Now I know it's not red, white, and blue, but that's not all conservatives are. I'm thinking of like amber waves of grain, right? And I'm thinking of like our country being built on farming. And like when America was moving west, it's like you had the first people going out there, and then the second people, which group were the homesteaders? The people that actually started cultivating the land. I think that was the third wave of people. Maybe it was the second. Well, whatever. Anyways, one of the waves of people that went over are people who started taking the land and making farm fields out of it and producing these different grains and stuff. And like this really allowed our country to grow. Like we're built on farmers. We're built on our amber waves of grain. And so I think like that's a thing in our history to protect and conserve. And I also think, if you've ever been to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., where the Senate and the House of Representatives do their business, there's detailing on the buildings. When you go on a tour, they show you, point out some of the detailings on the buildings. And some of the detail work is like corn. It's like, okay, ears of corn? And it's like, yes, farmers, corn, wheat, these grains, this is such a big deal for our country. And so I thought of that when I thought of the gold of the goldenrod, right? And then the other thing about goldenrod that is pretty freaking sweet is that it's a keystone plant. And so a keystone plant, I have a video on keystone plants. I'll give you a link in the description where I really explain it well. Briefly here, what it means is that in any ecosystem, there's all these different species, right? There's plants, there's animals, there's insects, and bacteria and worms and mold and all this stuff. And for any one of those species, if you pull it out, pull out all of that species, all the, slime molds or something, you pull them out, they all go extinct or whatever. For most species, that will make a little difference to the ecosystem because, everything's connected, but it's not like the whole ecosystem collapses. It's not like that prairie or that bit of forest is going to collapse and not work anymore, except some species. There are a few species that are called keystone species, and those ones, if you pull them out, you make them go extinct in an area, the whole area collapses. It doesn't look anything like it did before. It stops functioning properly. And so that little forest edge that you're used to seeing suddenly doesn't look right anymore. And the animals and insects that used to be there aren't there anymore. And it's what happened here? And it's a keystone species was removed or went extinct or something like that. And so goldenrod is a keystone species. It's so important. It's in this garden plan, it is the most important plant. It is a keystone species. All of these insects and pollinators and birds and little woodland creatures depend on goldenrod. It's amazing. It is a plant of plants. Love goldenrod. And so when I think of conservatives and I think of the United States, I think of how our country is like a keystone country. If our American dollar, nosedives, a lot of currencies around the world nosedive. If we suddenly, do something crazy, a lot of things in the world go crazy. A lot of other countries depend on our economy, on a lot of our new ideas, on a lot of the ways that we work and do things other countries look to. Now, I'm not saying always and everywhere, but as a general concept. And so I think of the keystone plants, right? They're really, they have outsized importance. And I think of America in that way too, and conservatives trying to protect our outsized value in the world, Okay. And lastly, plant 3C is compass plant. Now this baby can get up to 15 feet tall. If it's in full sun and it's as happy as can be, 15 feet. That's why it's all the way in the back. And is a really, really, really cool plant. And so, why I picked it? Well, I picked it because of that golden color, that nice yellow color, for the same reason as the goldenrod or farming and amber waves of grain, truly. But I also picked it because of its name, the compass plant. So originally it was thought, when settlers were settling, that the flower on the plant, it was thought that it always faced, oh shoot, I forgot, north? No, west. East? Well, anyways, people called it compass plant because the flower would face in a certain direction. So if you saw it and you were out on a prairie, you could be like, okay, that's the direction that I need to go, or I need to go in the opposite of that direction. It was like a compass. Now, it turns out that's not entirely true. But when I think of conservatives, and I think of the protecting of our country, the protecting of our people, the protecting of our ideas and our education system and our way of doing things that's good, protecting the things that are good, I think of the compass plant, like leading the way, giving direction to people, and I think of all the things in our country that have been good and are good. We do have a lot that's good here. And I think of sort of leading the way, like a compass plant with its directionality. All right, political conservatives. So that is my native flower garden design for you. And you know what I didn't mention? These are all native flowers and native plants. And so that means plants that have evolved here in North America. And so in some sense, like native flowers and native gardening is for conservatives. Do you know what I mean? Because like conservatives conserve what is good and what is here. And these native plants, these are what make America's geography special. Like these plants are here. Rattlesnake master doesn't grow anywhere else in the world naturally. Do you know what I mean? Cardinal flower, Ohio spiderwort, goldenrod. I mean, these things belong here, and this is where they come from. And so it's worthwhile to protect and conserve them too. Do you know what I mean? And so really, native plants and native gardening, I mean, that is conservative all the way. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, there's your garden design. I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but always, always, always vote. I know. What does one vote matter? Well, maybe in a national election, it doesn't matter much. But when you get down to those local races, man, look all the candidates up, read what they have to say. Always remember to vote. And always remember to plant native.